Good day to you lovely plant people. Now, nobody can ever accuse me of only showing a highlights reel of all my very best plants. I very often delve into the murky depths of all my failures. I have loads of them, openly admit to it, but I also have successes, and it's nice to balance them out. So today I thought I would show you my best growers right now for April 2022. So let's get started. And we are in. So I'm going to start with this. Now I did actually show this on a recent video all about Drosera, but it just keeps growing crazily. I mean, just look at this. This is just spectacular at the moment, and it's looking like it's going to get better and better because we've got lots and lots of shoots on it. So this here is a tangled mess of two different types of Drosera. So we've got Drosera dichotoma giant. I mean, they do actually look very, very similar. We've also got Drosera binata variety multifida. And it's just spectacular. And what's so good about this is that it can get very, very large, especially the dichotoma giant. I believe it can go up to 4 feet tall, or 4 feet long, I guess you would say. And it's just beautiful. And you've got all these lovely sparkly bits. And I can honestly say it looks far better when you actually see it in real life. It looks a lot more sparkly than it does on a video. I'm not sure why that is, but that is the case. And I think at the moment, because I've been using some neem oil, I don't really think I've got that many fungus gnats in the greenhouse. I just see one there that's been caught. Oh, actually, that one's still alive. Oh, that's a bit cruel. But it does a really good job of keeping these things down. But it just looks really nice on its own, and you can hang them from a hanging basket. It looks like a ball of dewy loveliness. So I really like this. I know it's not to everybody's taste, but it's growing really well for me right now. So that kind of fits into the criteria that we're talking about. So what else do they like? They like lots of light, and they don't mind going down to really low temperatures, as long as you don't get them frosty. But you can get Drosera from all over the world, and I did delve into that in a recent Drosera video. But I just thought you'd like to see that again. And if it inspires anybody to have a go at growing these things from seed, they're really easy. So yeah, that's the first plant on my list of something that's growing particularly well for me. Let's get on to the second one. So over here we have a maidenhair fern. So this is Adiantum radianum Fritz Luthi. So I've had this since October last year, so that's about 7 months. And it's doing really well for me. I particularly like the black stems with those beautiful frothy, kind of very delicate looking fronds, and delicate feeling fronds as well. Now you can see mine has begun to go a little bit brown in places, and that's because I had it almost in line with a fan. So I have moved it to a slightly different place. I think these kind of things will grow well in here, mainly because the light isn't that great. Talking about light, you might be interested to know, I've just literally checked the light in here. It's a very overcast day, very showery day. And it's not surprising that I get so many orchid failures, really, when you think that the light in here is less than the low light levels, like quite significantly less. So we're talking roughly 5 to 10,000 lux for a low light plant, and the light in here, unless I stick it right underneath the grow light, is roughly about 2,000 lux. That's the issue I'm facing. So you can never really, in a place like this, I can never underestimate how much the light affects the way my plants grow. But this is why these things grow so well. It's finding what grows well for you. So my maidenhair fern at the moment, it was only a tiny little sprig of a thing when it came, and now it's doing really, really well. And there are some gorgeous maidenhair ferns that I would like to try, especially the very large lobed ones, or large leaved ones, large frond ones, however you want to say it. But they just don't seem to be available in this country, or if they are, I don't know where they are. So if you do, please write that in the comments. I would love to know if anybody has a source of these things. So that's number 2 on my list. Let's move on to the next plant that's doing particularly well for me right now in April 2022. Okay, so we are actually going to go over to the hothouse in a minute. There's a lot more going on over there. But yeah, Nepenthes, all my Nepenthes are doing really well at the moment. This one is blooming currently, so if you've not seen a bloom, I mean, they're buds, obviously. They're not opened up yet, and they're nothing spectacular when they do. I might cut them off. I just thought I'd show you them. But in terms of pictures, I'm just getting loads and loads and loads of pictures. This one, which I thought was going to be an upper picture because of the size of it initially and the fact that it's got a full kink there in its tendril. That normally means it's going to be an upper pitcher, but it's more of an intermediate one again. It's just way too big to be an upper pitcher. So Nepenthes, Rebecca Soap are doing really well, despite the fact that I've dropped the temperatures quite significantly to like 7-8 degrees Celsius. It doesn't seem to have taken a hit whatsoever. Perfectly happy at those temperatures. During the day, it's getting a lot warmer when the sun does eventually show its face, but for now, today, the temperature in here is roughly about 12 degrees, so it's doing okay. Let's have a look at some of the other ones very quickly before we move on to the hothouse. So we've got over here, we've got Lowii crossed with Ventricosa, absolutely beautiful one, really like that one. We've got Gaia over here, which is throwing pictures out by the dozen. There's a new one just popped open over there. I think this one and the others where I've got them at the moment might be a little problem with the light once the sun kind of comes round, but at the moment it seems perfect for them. And this one is Gaia again, throwing pictures out all over the place, and it's certainly not a problem in terms of how many pictures it's producing. So I'm really happy with the way these things are going at the moment. I have another couple up here. That one's kind of in between pictures. That one, it's got another one coming out over there. I do have some other Nepenthes dotted about the place, but in general, Nepenthes are doing really well for me. And I have a few honourable mentions before we move over to the hothouse. So just over, you've just missed it, the Dendrobium Kingianum stroke delicatum, not sure which it is, was sold to me as Kingianum, but some people have said it could be delicatum. I believe there are a number of hybrids. These are just going over, but that's been lovely, absolutely smell fantastic. One or two pelargoniums just coming out now, but not really anything worth showing at the moment. I've got another dendrobium over here that's doing well, a nobile, a really old one that I've had it for years. It's got one or two flowers coming out. And I must just show you over here, I have a Dendrobium densiflorum, which I've been watering it more than I've ever watered it in the past, simply because I now have a sprayer. And look what we have here. We have a big fat bud. Now I did have a bud, I think last year, but it blasted. And I'm really hoping that this one doesn't, and then I'll have something to show, and I'll be able to say, of course, that I have re-bloomed it. So that's really all that's growing well for me at the moment in the cooler side of the greenhouse. We really need the temperatures to come back. This one obviously is doing really well, but we won't look at the foliage because that's looking dreadful. My other Phragmipedium Ainsworthii here has another bud on it. I have repotted that actually. I think part of the problem with the leaves could well have been the media, which was old and it was getting quite mouldy. I know they like to be wet, but it was quite mouldy, and I've changed the media, but I'm going to talk about that on another video. So let's nip over to the hothouse and see what's growing well over there, because there are loads of things to look at. I'll catch you over there. And we are over in the hothouse now. So let's show you some of the spectacular growth that we've had over the past few weeks. Have to start with this one. So this absolutely gorgeous begonia is Begonia Green Gecko. It's put loads of leaves on, I mean, a dozen leaves easily, and it's just growing spectacular. It seems to have found a place that it likes. In terms of light, again, I've checked the light, and the light, even with my grow lights on, they're not on now because of the flicker, but even when the grow lights are on, the light is still quite low on an overcast day. Still lower than what you would expect for a general low light plant. This is a medium light plant, so it would expect more than 10,000 lux, probably 10 to 15,000 lux. What are we getting? 2 to 3,000 lux, lower than a low light plant. However, it's happy. It's doing particularly well. Now, I've not checked the light levels when the sun comes round. It might be completely different in that case, but whatever the case is, you can see how well it's going. It's almost as if it's been splattered with some white paint. Somebody's got a brush and gone whoosh like that and completely splattered the whole thing. Do you like the sound effects? Whoosh. I'm not sure it would make that kind of sound, but I'm really impressed with this. I absolutely love it. It just looks really, really nice, and all the begonias are doing well at the moment. So that's the first plant over in the hothouse that's growing particularly well for me this April 2022. So let's move on. There are a number of begonias that I would like to show you, but obviously I've got to keep it to some limit. So let's have a look at a Kohleria. I did show you this Kohleria when it had a first flush of bloom on it, and now we have, I told you didn't I that it would grow a lot bigger, and now we have a number of blooms on it. It's gone already significantly bigger, and we have a number of buds coming out. Oh, you can see all those little buds about to come out. This blooms for quite a long time, and the blooms are gorgeous. So this is Kohleria Sunshine, and it's the first of my Kohleria out. I have bought some others, so I'm really impressed with that. Let's just see if we can zoom in a little bit and get to see some of the blooms really close up. Gorgeous, gorgeous thing. Very photogenic. And again, I say this every time, why don't people grow this? Hardly anybody grows Kohleria. I don't know why. I think it's a gorgeous thing. I think you really get bang for your buck with it. They're very cheap. They're only small when they arrive, and you can pretty much deal with them how you like. You can cut them down when you want to. You can give them a rest if you want to. You can keep them going if you want to. Loads to talk about there. Beautiful plant. So that's Kohleria Sunshine. At the back here we have Brassia Orange Delight. Always does really well for me as an orchid, and the first time I've actually had 2 spikes on it, so that is definitely growing well. We've still got some fungus gnats here despite me using Neem oil for the past couple of weeks. I'll just have to keep on at it. I have really reduced the amount of flies. I mean, you can see how many's on that there. Look at that. Loads and loads of fungus gnats, but I have been watering them as well, spraying them with neem oil. So there's neem oil on the surface of the leaves, there's also neem oil going into the pots. And believe it or not, because I've always thought and read that orchid pots are not really great for fungus gnats, but you can see how many. There's one flying around there. They seem just as happy laying their eggs in bark as they do in a finer compost. So yeah, anyway, that one's growing really well for me. Brassia Orange Delight. If you're a UK orchid grower, then Brassias are a good choice. If I can grow them, anyone can grow them. Let's move on to the next plant. So my Cattleya types are doing way better over here than they did over in the greenhouse. Probably the light, they're near the window, they're getting more sun. And this one has a really long name, but we'll show you the blooms first. Look at that. Now this one has rebloomed for me once already last year, but not a show like that. I think that's got to be my best Cattleya-type orchid I think I've ever bloomed or rebloomed. That is gorgeous, absolutely stunning, very vivid. I really like the dark centres, I just like everything about that. So, big long name, this one is Ringcattleyanthi Xing Fong Little Sun Young Min Golden Boy. Wow, gosh, that is a name and a half, isn't it? So that one's doing exceptionally well, and all I'm doing is spraying these pots. I'm not allowing those roots to get really soaked. I'm just spraying into the top, and that little and often seems to be doing better for me than completely soaking the whole thing, or draining some water through it, pouring some water through the top. That seems to be finally the kind of thing that will work for me in my situation. So next up for me is one that you're not used to seeing. So this is an aroid. So this is Philodendron melachronysum. Okay, we've only got one leaf. What's spectacular about that, you might say? Well, this was a cutting, a trade from somebody, but what I want to show you is all those roots. It really does seem to be enjoying growing in this sphagnum moss. Really chuffed that it's got loads of roots, and loads of roots means new growth. You can just see a new leaf there coming, or a new growth coming. So I was very nervous about this kind of thing because I've never grown aroids before, and I believe, or I've heard, that they can be quite tricky. This one doesn't seem to be, and this is quite expensive to buy. I was really lucky to be able to trade this for one of my own and not actually have to pay anything for it. So I'm very happy about that, and can't wait to see that do its thing and grow into a decent sized plant for me. So that's the first of the philodendrons to show you, and let's move on to the next plant. So this is another begonia. So this is Begonia connie boswell. I actually had this right from June last year. So we're talking, gosh, how many months is that? So we're talking 10 months. And for 10 months, this only had 2 leaves on it. So much so, I was so worried about it that I actually grew myself a cutting, and this is the cutting down here. So the cutting rooted really well for me. That's got 3 leaves on it. But the main mother plant, as you can see now, has got lots of leaves on it, and it's turning into a rather nice plant. Love the patterning on here. I can't remember what type of begonia it is off the top of my head, but it's certainly a nice one. Kind of looks a bit like a cane one. I'm not really sure, to be honest. It's no use me saying. I'll pop it up on screen when I find out what it is. But yeah, 2 leaves for all those months. So what's the difference? Well, it could be the temperature. I did have it at 15 degrees and now it's at 17 degrees. Would 2 degrees make all the difference? Possibly. Maybe it's in a lighter spot now. Whatever the reason, I'm really happy to see this grow well. So as with lots of the begonias that I have, they just seem to like my conditions, which is always very gratifying when that happens. So yeah, Connie Boswell doing really well. Let's move on to the next one. So rather than show you individual plants, we're just going to kind of scan over a few. Another begonia doing well with the gorgeous pink. We'll quickly scan over, and if you want to know the names of any of these, I will pop them up on screen. Another one with the red flashes, a new one with all the hairs, which I'm really pleased with. And we've got the beautiful Monstera, which we know now has a fantastic root on it. Another begonia there, this one from Nick, who kindly sent me a cutting from this. I think he sells them. He sold me a cutting, doing really well. Tradescantia doing well. And look at this other Tradescantia. Well, it's a Cattleya. Well, this one I've had to move because it's growing all over the place. So I think this one sells as Tradescantia tiana. So it's actually Cattleya, what is it? Cattleya gentlei variety elegans. So that's a nice one, doing particularly well. So we've got lots of growth going on at the moment over in the hothouse, which I'm really pleased about. So in general, really happy that the growth is coming on now in spring, and that we're getting better temperatures, even though this week it's absolutely dreadful, the weather. And I'm really hopeful and looking forward to lots of these plants growing into really nice specimens. And maybe I can take some cuttings and sell them on, or maybe I might give them away. I'm really into the trade, to be honest. I'm not really interested in selling them on. Here's another one. There's another Tradescantia. Look at that one. That's looking quite nice. I'm really pleased with that one. That one is Tradescantia AF, I don't know what AF stands for, Fluminensis albovittata. That's the new name for it. It was originally albovittata quicksilver, so that's changed its name, as these things tend to do. So what I want you to do is tell me in the comments, do you have any plants that's growing particularly well at the moment, or any plants that's not doing that well? I mean, probably concentrate on the ones that are doing well, while that's the title of the video. And if you were impressed with a number of pictures on my Nepenthes and maybe yours aren't doing so well, I mean, they might be doing just as well, they might be doing better than mine, but if they're not, then have a look at this video I'm going to put on the end, which gives you 8 or 9 quick tips that you can do to improve your growing conditions. Not very difficult, but what they will do is give you more pictures on your Nepenthes. So that's it for now. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and for now, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.